Julia had the duffel bag halfway zipped when she heard the footsteps. Not soft, not rushed, deliberate, heavy. Each step echoed through the hallway like a warning shot. She didn't need to turn around. She already knew it was him, Mark, the man she had once married, the man who now made her home feel like a trap. Her breath hitched. Her fingers froze on the zipper. The baby monitor on the dresser gave a faint crackle. Lily had finally gone quiet. She stood perfectly still, hoping, foolishly, that maybe he would keep walking. But he didn't. His voice cut through the air like broken glass. "Where do you think you're going?" He didn't shout. He didn't need to. His voice had lost all warmth. It was ice. And behind it, something darker. Julia turned around slowly, like prey, sensing the predator behind her. Mark stood in the doorway, arms stiff at his sides, jaw tight, eyes locked on the bag, then on her. And then his fist began to rise. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Julia gripped the strap of her bag like it might shield her. But in that second, all she could feel was what she always did when he got like this. That she was 7 years old again, small, helpless, waiting for something she couldn't stop. The air was frozen. Mark's fist still hung mid-air, trembling, not from hesitation, but from rage, barely held back. Julia didn't breathe. She couldn't. And then, ding-dong, the sound of the doorbell sliced through the room like a blade. Mark's hand dropped. His eyes darted toward the hallway, then back to Julia. Suspicion twisted his face. "Who the hell is that?" he growled. Julia shook her head. I don't know." But she did. Somehow, she did. The knock came again, this time slower, steadier, like whoever was out there wasn't leaving. Mark's voice dropped into a warning growl. "Open it and smile." Julia's legs were barely working. Her pulse roared in her ears as she stumbled to the door. She peeked through the peephole and gasped. There, standing in the rain-dappled glow of the porch light, was Ethan. Older now, sharper around the jaw, but the same steady gaze, the same quiet strength. "Julia," he said softly, as if he knew she was on the other side. "It's me. Please open the door." Julia's breath caught in her chest. Behind her, Mark's presence closed in like a shadow. "Who is it?" he demanded. She swallowed hard. "Just a friend from college," she lied. But Ethan was never just a friend. He had once been her safe place. And now he was back, at the exact moment she needed him most. Before the bruises, before the fear, before the silence crept into her bones. There was cinnamon and sunlight. Julia was 7, sitting cross-legged in a kitchen chair far too big for her tiny frame. The morning light streamed through gauzy white curtains, casting golden stripes across the table. And in the center, a jar of wildflowers, yellow, violet, pink, picked from the sidewalk cracks, arranged with care. Across from her, her mother floated around the kitchen in a soft blue dress, hair braided, cheeks lightly flushed, humming an old lullaby. There were 2 plates, 2 mugs, and the smell of vanilla pancakes filled the room like a memory trying to stay. Julia tilted her head. "Why are you so dressed up?" Her mother smiled, turning with a flourish. "Because every day with you is a celebration." She said it like it was the most obvious truth in the world. Julia giggled and picked a piece of strawberry from her plate. She didn't know this breakfast was different, didn't realize her mother had braided her hair more neatly than usual, or that the lullaby sounded more like a goodbye than a tune. But her mother knew. She always knew. That morning, they walked hand in hand to the park, fingers intertwined a little tighter than usual. Ducks swam across the pond. Julia laughed when one stole a piece of bread. Her mother laughed too, but quieter, distant. And then, on a weathered bench under a tree that smelled of late summer, she turned to Julia. "Do you know how much I love you?" Julia smiled, chewing on a crust. "A lot." Her mother kissed her forehead. And I love you even more. Whatever happens, sweetheart, Mama will always be with you, right here. She placed a gentle hand on Julia's heart. There were tears in her eyes. Julia tilted her head, concerned. Are you crying? Her mother blinked them away, smiling through them. No, honey, just the wind. That night, she read Julia a story about a princess who found her way home, and by morning, she was gone. The sun was softer that afternoon, as if even the sky knew it needed to tread gently. Julia held her mother's hand a little tighter, her small fingers wrapped around two larger ones. They walked to the park just like any other day, but something felt different. The air was quieter, the breeze slower. Even the ducks on the pond seemed calmer, almost still. Her mother smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. They sat on their usual bench, old wood worn by time and stories. The same bench where they'd shared picnics, wiped ice cream drips, counted clouds. But today, her mother didn't pull out snacks. She didn't point out the shapes in the sky. She just looked at Julia, long, quiet, like she was memorizing her face. Do you know how much I love you? She asked softly. Julia swung her feet and shrugged, giggling. A lot, her mother smiled. Even more than that. And no matter what happens, sweetheart, Mama will always be here. She touched Julia's chest again, over her heart. Right here. And then she leaned in and kissed her on the forehead longer than usual. The kind of kiss that says more than words ever could. Julia didn't know it was goodbye. She just thought it was a perfect day. That night, her mother tucked her in with a warm blanket and a soft voice. She read her favorite story, the one about the princess who finds her way home. Julia drifted off to sleep with the sound of that voice in her ears. She didn't know that would be the last night she ever heard it. The room was empty. The curtains still swayed gently. The pillow still smelled like her mother's lavender lotion. But her mother was gone. Julia called out at first, whispered, then shouted, then screamed. No one answered. Instead, strangers came. Women in gray suits, a man with a clipboard, a car with a door that clicked shut too loudly. It's okay, sweetheart. You'll be all right, one of them said. But Julia didn't want all right. She wanted Mama. They didn't let her pack her things. They didn't explain. One woman handed her a small plastic bag with her toothbrush and a photo in a wooden frame. The picture of her and Mama by the pond. She clutched it like oxygen. The facility had long hallways and walls painted the color of sadness, pale gray-blue like a cloudy day. It smelled like bleach and cheap food. Metal bunk beds. A cafeteria that echoed. Staff who smiled too hard or not at all. This is your bed, a woman named Mrs. Mill. Adler said, tapping the top bunk. Wake up at 7. Sheets get changed on Wednesdays. No one said I'm sorry. No one said your mom is gone. All they said was time to grow up now. 6 months. That's how long it had been since her mother vanished from the world and Julia was dropped into a system where hugs were rationed and bedtime stories didn't exist. She had stopped asking for Mama, stopped crying at night, not because the pain had faded, but because it had hardened into something sharp, quiet. Then one afternoon, someone called her name, Julia Spencer. No one ever said her full name, not the other kids, not the staff. It sounded foreign, heavy. In the office sat a tall man in a gray suit, dark hair, stern eyes. His jaw looked like hers, so did the curve of his eyebrows. He stood up slowly. Hi, Julia, he said. His voice was soft, measured, careful, too careful. I'm your father. She froze. The word father didn't mean anything to her. How do you know? She asked. He took a breath, long and rehearsed. After your mom passed, one of her friends contacted me. She told me your name was mentioned in the obituary. I took a DNA test. It came back last week. She looked at him numb, suspicious. Where were you? She whispered. He dropped his eyes. I didn't know you existed. It sounded like the truth, but it wasn't. Not really. At the time, Julia believed him because she needed to. But years later, while cleaning out a storage closet, she found the truth. A bundle of letters, all written in her mother's handwriting. And one, just weeks before her death, said, "Richard, don't look for us. Julia thinks she has no father. Let it stay that way. You made your choice. I'm making mine. But if anything happens to me, please take care of our daughter. She doesn't deserve to pay for our mistakes." So he had known. She had reached out, and he stayed away anyway. The university library was her hiding place, a world made of dust-covered books, whispering pages, and silence thick enough to drown in. While other students chatted in groups or napped in sunny courtyards, Julia always went to the same table, back left corner, by the frosted glass window, where no one ever sat. Except one day, someone did. "Excuse me," a voice said, gentle, not pushy. Julia looked up, startled. He stood there holding 3 textbooks stacked against his chest. "Medical titles. Heavy stuff. Everywhere else is full. Do you mind?" She shook her head. "Go ahead." He nodded his thanks and sat down. Didn't say another word, just opened his book and started reading. But it wasn't the kind of silence Julia was used to. It didn't suffocate. It settled. Over the next few days, he kept coming back, always to the same chair. He didn't force conversation, didn't ask her what she was reading or where she was from. He just sat, wrote. Sometimes shared a snack, quietly sliding over a granola bar with a small nod. His name was Ethan. He didn't say it until the 4th time they sat together. "I'm Ethan," he offered one afternoon, not looking up from his notebook. "Julia," she replied. And that was it. No awkward questions, no pressure to talk, just the soft company of someone who didn't demand anything from her. It happened in November. The leaves had turned gold and crisp. The library smelled like old books and cold air. Ethan showed up with 2 cups of tea, hers with extra honey, just how she liked it. He sat across from her in their usual spot. His eyes were steady, his voice quiet but sure. "I got accepted." Julia looked up from her notes. "Accepted? A surgical fellowship. Europe. 3 years. Top clinics. It's everything I've worked for." She smiled, proud of him, but her heart dropped because she already knew what was coming. "I want you to come with me," he said softly. "Marry me, Julia. Let's start over somewhere new, just you and me." It should have felt like freedom. It should have felt like a beginning. Instead, it felt terrifying. Leave everything, follow love into the unknown? She smiled weakly. "I need time." Ethan nodded, gave her space. Weeks turned into silence. And in that silence, someone else spoke. His name was Mark Caldwell. Young, charismatic, brilliant. An adjunct professor in the education department. He noticed Julia after one of her class presentations. "You have poise," he told her. "Presence. Something rare. Something magnetic." At first, it felt like admiration, then attention, then validation. Mark made Julia feel seen, but not gently like Ethan did. He made her feel chosen. He took her to high-end restaurants, bought her gifts, told her she was too good to waste her potential on quiet lives and small classrooms. He didn't ask her to come with him. He asked her to stand beside him, not as a partner, as a trophy. And Julia, still doubting her own worth, mistook that pedestal for love. So when Mark proposed with a diamond, a toast, a room full of approval, she said yes. Ethan never called again. Julia had never been more nervous to share good news. She waited until after dinner. The plates were cleared, the wine glasses still shimmered in the candlelight. A soft jazz record played in the background. Everything looked perfect, so she said it gently. "Mark, I'm pregnant." She smiled, hopeful, nervous. Her fingers trembled under the tablecloth. Mark didn't smile back. He didn't reach for her hand. He didn't say a word. He set down his wine glass, slowly, deliberately, and stared at her like she'd just told him she crashed his car. "You're what?" Julia nodded, trying to keep the joy in her voice. "Pregnant. I just found out this morning." He blinked, then leaned back in his chair. "We had a plan." "I know, but maybe this is okay. Maybe it's good." He didn't respond, not with warmth, not with excitement. He sighed, a long, exhausted, disappointed sigh. "Next time," he said coldly, "ask for permission." Julia felt her chest cave in. Her hand instinctively touched her stomach, already protective of a child that hadn't even grown. "It's our baby," she whispered. Mark stood. "No, it's your mistake." "I told you we weren't ready. I told you this wasn't the time." He walked away, left her sitting in silence. And that night, Julia laid awake next to a man who never once asked if she was okay. Mark didn't hit her, not yet, but his words, they landed like punches. Small, precise, cruel. "You've let yourself go," said while she was holding their newborn daughter, hair unwashed from 2 nights of no sleep, eyes heavy from every 3 a.m. feeding. "Don't talk about your upbringing," said while she was holding their newborn daughter hair. Upbringing. "Don't talk about your upbringing. It makes people uncomfortable," said at a faculty dinner when Julia casually mentioned she was raised in a foster home. "Say thank you that I'm still here," said when she apologized for forgetting to buy sparkling water. They weren't shouted, they were whispered, slipped into conversation like venom into wine. No witnesses, no bruises, but the damage grew. At first, Julia answered back, softly, carefully. She tried to explain, to reason, but Mark always had a comeback. Always a way to twist her words into guilt. Eventually, she stopped defending herself and started believing him. She stopped wearing lipstick, stopped mentioning her past, stopped calling her father, stopped asking for anything, because every need became an inconvenience, every feeling a flaw. She thought if she just worked harder, looked better, smiled more, maybe the man she married would come back. But that man never existed. It started with water on the floor. Nothing dramatic, just a spilled glass by the sink. Julia slipped, caught herself on the counter, and reached for a towel. Mark walked in, saw the puddle, saw her crouched on the floor, and exploded. "What the hell is this?" Julia looked up startled. I spilled some water. I was just about to." "You're always cleaning up something, always fixing what you screw up." He grabbed her arm. Tight. Too tight. "You're not a child, Julia. Clean it up." "I am," she said, still holding the towel. He shoved her hard. Her back slammed into the edge of the counter. Pain bloomed across her spine and elbow. For a moment, the kitchen spun, but she said nothing. Not a scream, not a sob, just a whisper. "I'm sorry." Mark stood over her, breathing hard, then turned and walked away. She stayed there, kneeling on the floor, towel in hand, eyes blank. Later that night, she covered the bruises with a long sleeve. No one asked about them. And she didn't offer an explanation, because how do you explain staying? How do you say, "I have children, I can't just leave"? He didn't mean to. It was a bad day. How do you admit you're too broken to run? That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Julia was folding laundry in the living room, and Emily, her oldest, just 5 years old, peeked around the corner. She hesitated, then patted over in her socks. "Mommy?" she whispered. Julia turned, surprised. "You should be asleep, honey." Emily climbed into her lap, curled against her chest. "I don't like when Daddy comes home," she said. And just like that, Julia broke. Not out loud, not in front of Emily, but somewhere deep inside, something cracked open and would never fully close again. She kept it hidden between the pages of an old cookbook. Tucked between lemon bars and chicken pot pie was a slip of paper, wrinkled, faded, torn at the corner. On it, just a name, a phone number, and a single sentence. Women's Help Center, confidential, always open. Susan had written it months ago, slid it into Julia's grocery bag one afternoon, eyes glassy with something close to fear. Julia had almost thrown it out, but something stopped her. That night, after the kids were asleep and the house was finally quiet, she pulled out the book. Her hands trembled. She dialed. The line clicked. Women's Help Center. Are you safe right now? Julia opened her mouth, but the words got stuck. She looked at her reflection in the microwave door. Split lip, faded bruise, a shadow of who she used to be. And finally she said it. No, I'm not safe. The voice on the other end was calm, grounded, like a hand reaching through the dark. We can help. Do you have somewhere to go? No, just my stepmother's, but he'll find me. Then we'll help you stay hidden. How many children? 3, all under 7. A pause. Okay, we'll move fast. Come in the morning, bring only what matters. We'll take care of the rest. Julia hung up, her heart racing. She didn't cry. She felt something else, relief. But relief didn't last, because the next morning, Mark came home early from the gym and heard the last number dialed still glowing on her phone screen. The door slammed shut behind her. Julia froze in the hallway. Her phone slipped from her hand, landing with a dull thud on the floor. Mark stood between her and the exit. His face was stone, but his eyes wild, flickering like a fuse about to blow. You called them. It wasn't a question. Julia didn't answer. He took a step forward, then another. You think you can just leave? He growled. I'm leaving for their safety, Mark. Their safety? He barked a laugh. You mean to tell me you're taking my kids away from me? He lunged. Julia backed into the wall, shielding her body with her arms. Please don't. His fist hit the drywall inches from her head. The sound cracked through the silence like a gunshot. I've put a roof over your head, fed you, clothed you. You hurt us, Julia shouted. Her voice broke. But this time, she didn't lower it. You break things when you're angry. You make Emily cry. You make me small. Mark's jaw clenched. His hands curled into fists again. You're lucky I'm still here, he hissed. Without me, you'd be nothing. Just some broken orphan with no name. That did it. Julia stood up straighter. Her voice shook, but it rang with fire. Then I'd rather be a broken orphan than your prisoner. Outside, a knock. Then another. The shelter had sent someone. Julia stepped toward the door. Mark grabbed her wrist. You walk out that door, Julia. Don't ever come back. She looked at him for the first time with no fear. That's the idea. The doorbell rang. Not once, but twice. Insistent, sharp. Like a match strike in gasoline air. Julia flinched. Mark didn't move. He was still gripping her wrist tight enough to leave a bruise, loose enough to pretend it was nothing. Another knock. Mark turned toward the door, voice low, venomous. Don't you dare answer that. But Julia had already started walking. He grabbed her arm again, but this time she ripped it free. She opened the door. And there he was. Ethan. Older now. A little more tired in the eyes, a few gray streaks in his hair, but that same calm warmth on his face. And when he saw Julia, bruised, breathless, her eyes screaming what her lips couldn't, he didn't say a word. He stepped forward. Mark barked, "Who the hell are you?" I'm someone who remembers who she used to be, and I'm not leaving. Julia's knees almost gave out. Mark slammed the door shut behind Ethan. You need to leave. This is my house, my wife, and my kids. Ethan didn't flinch. No, Mark. She stopped being yours the minute you started breaking her. Julia was in between them now. 2 men, one who weaponized love, one who still treated it like a sacred thing. The house fell into silence. Even the kids upstairs seemed to sense it. No more fists, no more screaming. Just a choice. And this time, Julia would be the one making it. The shelter was small, no chandeliers, no flowers and vases. Just white walls, bunk beds, and a woman behind the desk who smiled like she had seen thousands of Julias walk through that door and still cared. Ethan didn't speak much on the drive. He just kept glancing at the rearview mirror at the 3 sleeping children and the woman beside him who looked like a survivor of war. Not broken, but battle-worn. When they arrived, Julia stepped out slowly. Her feet touched the ground like it was foreign land. She didn't carry much, just a duffel bag with half-zipped clothes, a few drawings Emily refused to leave behind, and a tattered cookbook where she'd hidden the shelter's number. Inside, she signed her name and paused. Julia Caldwell. That name stung. She crossed it out. Julia Spencer, a name she hadn't used in over a decade, but it still felt more hers than anything Mark had ever given her. The kids were given blankets, warm milk, toothbrushes in tiny Ziploc bags. Julia sat on the bed. The mattress squeaked. Across the room, a girl no older than 18 was reading The Alchemist. A woman in her 50s was sewing a button. Everyone here had a story. No one asked hers. And for the first time in years, she didn't need to explain. It was 3:17 a.m. when Julia woke up. The shelter was quiet. The kind of quiet that used to scare her, but now just felt still. She slipped out of bed, careful not to wake the kids. At the common room table, under a flickering fluorescent light, she opened her notebook and wrote, "Mark, I'm not writing this to make you feel bad. That would still mean I care how you feel. I don't. This letter isn't for you. It's for me. You won't read it. You'll never hear these words. And that's the point. Because this isn't a scream. It's a release. I loved you once. Or maybe I loved the way you made me feel before the bruises, before the silence. But the woman who loved you, she's gone. You buried her under every insult, every shove, every door slam and lie, and calculated, I love you. And here's what you didn't expect. I survived. Not because of you, but in spite of you. I'm not asking for an apology. You don't owe me closure. I gave that to myself." Julia, she folded the letter, held it in her hands, then walked outside, barefoot, silent, and with one match, lit it on fire. The paper curled, hissed, and blackened. Not with hate, but with freedom. Inside, the kids still slept, and for the first time in years, so would she. The kitchen was small, the tiles cracked, the window crooked, but it was theirs. A rented 2-bedroom house near the school. No alarms, no locked doors, no footsteps that made her heart stop. Just warmth and space to breathe. Every Saturday, Julia made pancakes. Not fancy ones, just plain with a bit of vanilla. Emily always said they tasted like Saturdays with sunshine. Jacob and Lily would fight over the syrup bottle. Ethan never asked her to marry him. He didn't bring rings or speeches. He just showed up with groceries, soft jokes, and a quiet promise in the way he washed the dishes beside her. One morning, Julia found a drawing Emily left on the fridge. It had a smiling woman holding 3 kids. Next to them, a man holding coffee. And in the corner, a heart drawn in orange crayon. Julia stared at it for a long time and smiled. Not because life was perfect, but because it was hers. She was no longer the woman hiding bruises. She was no longer the little girl waiting at a park bench for a mother who would never return. She was Julia. Not Caldwell, not anyone's property. Just Julia. A woman, a mother, a survivor, a beginning. You don't have to stay where you're no longer safe. You don't owe your pain to anyone. You don't need permission to begin again. Sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is whisper enough and take the first step toward freedom. Julia's story reminds us survival isn't the end. Healing is. And love, real love, doesn't cage you. It sets you free. If Julia's story moved you, if you've ever felt lost, silenced, or underestimated, subscribe to our channel. Because here, we don't just tell stories, we remind you your voice matters, your healing matters, and your story isn't over yet.